Hi guys. So in this video we are going to add the player score. So far we are not keeping score when the player destroys the invaders or the mystery ship, and we are going to implement that in this video. So the first thing that we need to see is in the layout how we are going to show the score. And I have it here on the top left corner. This is not exactly like the original game. From what I saw, the original game has a score for the player 1 and a score for the player 2 and also an I score in the middle. We are not going to implement that. We're just going to keep it simple with the score for player 1. Maybe we could add some more complex things like keeping an I score and stuff like that would be really cool, but it's not the purpose of this video, at least yet. So maybe later we can implement that. Right now we are only going to deal with adding this to our screen and changing the value of the score. And why are we on? How can we add this to Scratch? We don't have an easy way to write text on the screen in text in Scratch. Basically, we can use something like this to show a value of a variable, and we are going to create a variable for the player score. So we could just create the variable and show it the value like this, but this doesn't look very good. This is more for like debug purposes. And we don't have a block or anything that allow us to write stuff. I mean, we have one which is like say hello. This one can write, but it looks like a balloon. Let me show you. Here, let me see. Oh, the mystery ship, no, sorry. I'm gonna add this maybe on the player so we can see it. Say hello, yeah, when we click. So you see, it appears like a text balloon. I'm gonna mute this. Yeah, so it appears like a text balloon. This is not what we want. And we don't have any other way. We have a sync block. I think this is like, yeah, syncing block. So we can't use it also. And we don't have any other way to just write text on the screen and customize the font and stuff like that. So what we need to do actually is to get the font that we want, write the text from some other program, and then export all the sprites that we are going to use to write that text. And in this case, since we are writing score, we are going to have a score can go up to 4 digits. And we are going to have images for each one of the numbers from 0 to 9. And then we need to add some code to change the numbers of each one of these digits to reflect the current score of the player. But before that, we are going to import another sprite just so that we can have also this label. And this is a simple label. This is not going to have any behavior. It's just an interface label that we can have before the score value. And for this label, I just wrote also the text using a font that I downloaded and exported as an image. And according to the font, about the font, you can get some free fonts and some cool fonts here on the font.com. You have a lot of fonts here. You can search for all the styles and you can test it. You can just write here, for example, you can see a preview of the font or what you are writing, how would appear with the font that you selected. And in this case, I went to this pixel bitmap category and searched for a font that I liked, and I got this one called Retro Gaming. This was a font that I downloaded, and after downloading the font, you just need to install the font on your computer. So I'm gonna have like this font file. You open this, you install on your computer, and then open the program that you are using to generate the images using the font. In my case, it was Figma, and I added a text field, wrote whatever I want, and chose the correct font here. So in this case, I wrote score of player number 1, and then exported this as a sprite. And about this, I want to show you something, because when we are working with fonts, at least for my experience, when I was working with this, and I'm going to show you with a number because I think it's easier to see. You need to export the image with double the resolution than what you want. So in this case, I'm using an image with 10 by 16. It's not going to be 10 by 16 because when we export from Figma, it's going to cut the image exactly to the border of the actual text. So it's going to be smaller than this. But either way, if I export this with the numbers that I have there, which is this sprite, I already tested this before. So I'm going to import this here so that you guys can see. that the quality is not that good. So I can export, you can see here, but if you maximize, you see that the image is all blurred, doesn't have enough quality. So what I ended up doing was exporting the image with double the resolution. And in Figma is really cool because I can just export, choose here, I have the image with one size, and I can just choose to export with different multipliers of that size. So I just, not 1.5, but 2, if I export with double the size, I'm gonna put on top of the other one, I'm gonna delete this one, and let's import again. And yeah, the sprite is a lot bigger. But if we then change the scale of the sprite to half, because the size, not scale, the size of the sprite to half of the original size, it gets a little bit better. And this is more than enough for what we want. So it's a good solution, I think. So in this case, I'm going to import now all the sprites for all the numbers. So we have the numbers from 0 to 9, and we also need to import the sprite for the player 1 label. So I'm going here, and I'm going to import first the player label, which is also really big. I exported also with double the size, so I'm going to put size 50 to have half of that, and I'm going to put it here, and we are going to see the correct position in just a bit. And let's also import the numbers for writing the score. And I have them here from 0 to 9. No, sorry, we cannot do this. Not once again. So we need to import only the first one. And then on that sprite, we go to the costumes, and then we import everything else. So score number 1 to score number 9. Yeah. And now we have all the numbers. I'm going to select the 0. Let's change the size of the sprite to 50. So it's half of the size. I'm going to put it here also. And we'll see in a bit how to position it perfectly. And now we have both sprites. And we are going to add all the rest. So first things first, we are going, just like we did with everything else, like the invaders and what was the other one, the missiles, all the sprites that have different costumes and different types and stuff like that. We are only going to use one sprite with all the costumes, as you see, like from 0 to 9. And then we are going to change the costume that we want to represent the value. And in this case, we are also going to use only one sprite for the value and just instantiate or clone this sprite to get all the 4 digits. Just like we did with the bunkers and the invaders, all those sprites that we need to replicate the sprite. And in this one, we don't need to do basically nothing. It's just positioning the sprite on the correct place. And to position the sprite on the correct place, so let's start by positioning this one on the correct place. This is 74, so it's going to be like 37, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, half of that in terms of the width. And 37. Yeah, 37, right, yeah. 37 plus, what, 37 plus 8, we have 45. So it's going to be out at 45 units from the left. 45, which means that the top edge coordinate is at minus 240, so it's going to be at minus 195. Oh, not this one. Not this one, but the score. It's this one that we want. So it's going to be at minus 195, and the height is 16, so 8, and it's at 4, so 8, 4, 12, and this is 180. Yes, 180 minus 12 is going to be 168. So 168. And yes, this is the correct position for the score. And now we can get the correct position for the first sprite of the digits. Okay. So here, let's see. So the height is the same, so it's 16. So it's going to be also the same on the same Y position than the label. So 168. 168, and now we need to see where we are going to put it in terms of the X position and the X position. So this is 4, and now we can do the math from the label. So the label is at, let me see, 195. 195, it has like 37, so 165 165, yeah. So 165, 158, 158 plus 8, 154, 154 plus 154 plus 9, 149, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is at 149. Not here. This is 68. And here is 149. Yep. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, if my math is correct, I think this is the correct position. But once again, just adjust it if I'm mistaken the calculations. So, okay, so we have the sprite on the correct place. And now we are going to clone this sprite. I mean, with the original one, just hide the original one, create clones to generate all the 4 digits. Just like we did with some other sprites before. And if we are going to clone this score, I'm going to change the name here. It's not score 0, it's just score. So we need, we are only going to generate the score after the game actually starts. So when we receive the message start, and we are going to repeat 4 times because we have 4 digits. And inside these 4 types, we are going to create clones, create clone of myself. And when I start as a clone, we are going to position the sprite on the correct place. So we are going to change X because in the Y we don't change, we only move the sprite to the right on the correct place. So a way to get the sprite on the correct place, we need to see here that the sprite has a width of 10. So each sprite is going to be 10 units apart on the X-axis. So we need to move it 10 units each time that we want to generate each one of the digits. And just like we did before, we need to have an index for the digit. So we need to have like a digit index. Let's say it, yeah, or a value index, digit index. Because we're going to use some other indexes here, so we're going to call it digit index. And so this is going to be digit index number 0. Let me write that here because we are going to need it afterwards. So this is going to be number 0, this is going to be number 1, this is going to be number 2, and this is going to be number 3. So this is the index of each one of the digits, and we are going to use this to position the digits accordingly. So what we are going to do, we know that we need to move them 10 units, and so we are going to move them the index times 10. So this one doesn't move because it's 10 times 0, this one moves 10 units, this one moves 20, this one moves 30. So the first thing that we need is to create a variable. Let's create a variable called digit index. Yeah, digit index. For all sprites, I'm not going to make this mistake again, so it's for all sprites because we're going to change it on the original sprite and not on the other one. So digit index, and we are going to set initially, we are always going to reset this variable and set the digit index to 0, and then we are going to change when we create, after we create the clone, we are going to change the digit index by 1. So the first one 0, 1, 2, 3. And here we are going to change X by multiplying the digit index by 10. So here, and we can drag the digit index and by 10. And now we can also, let's just hide the original sprite and show the new clone and show the clones when they are in the correct position. And yes, so let's try it. Okay. But the first one is also not on the correct position once again. Yes. Once again, the same mistake. Sorry, guys. The variable needs to be for this sprite only. I'm always making this mistake, and it seems that I can't get it right at the first time. So this is not for all sprites. This is for this sprite only because it's gonna copy the value to the clone. And then if we are doing this, it's exactly the same problem that we had on the last video. I don't know. I didn't remember once again. So now we have the digit index, which is for each sprite. And this is the same. I don't know why I got this. So digit index to 0. here we are going to change the digit index by 1. We don't need the old anymore, so I'm just gonna delete this one, and we are going to multiply the digit index by 10. Yeah, no, it's correct. I don't know. I think eventually I'll get this all sprites and only this sprite right. I don't know. At least I hope so. So now that we have the sprite on the correct place, we can start changing the values of the sprites. And to change the value, the first thing that we need, if we are keeping the player score, we are going to need a variable to have the score of the player. So the first thing we are going to do is create a variable. Can go to the, yeah, we don't need to select the player because we are going to create a global variable. And this one, I'm sure it's a global variable, but it makes sense because we are going to need to update it from different places, and we are also going to need to use it on the digits. So the variable is just 1. Let's see, but I'm pretty confident this time. So we have the score for all sprites, and now we are going to use the value of this score to change the values of the digits. And here is where it gets a little bit tricky, because we have the 4 digits, and I'm going to go back to this one. Okay, we have the 4 digits, which have index 0, 1, 2, and 3, and we need to change the digits in order to reflect the value of the score. But now, for example, the score can have different values, just like we have a score with 2 digits, like 10. We can have a score with 3 digits. These are just the options, of course, and we have all the values in between, or 4 digits. We have these 3 different situations, and I'm not counting with only 1 digit because we don't have a score. We cannot have a score with only 1 digit. The minimum score the player can achieve is by killing 1 is 0, of course, but is like destroying 1 invader, which has a score of 10. It's a minimum amount. So you'll never get a score of 1, 2, 3, 4 until 10. So we can have these 3 different situations. So a score with 2 digits, a score with 3 digits, and a score with 4 digits. And now we are going to need to represent these values here on these values that we have here. And the first thing that we need to see here is which values we are going to update. Because a way that we are going to use to update these values is by sending a message. We are going to need to create a message like update score, and after we update the score, so we are going to update the score on 2 different places, when we destroy an invader and when we destroy the mystery ship. After we update the value of the score, we need to tell the digits to update their own value according to the current value in the score variable. So let's create this message. Before we get to this, let's just create that and just get that out of the way. So we have the score variable, and like I said, we are going to update the score variable on 2 different cases, when we destroy an invader and when we destroy the mystery ship. So we already have the places where we are destroying both of them. So when we destroy an invader is here. So we select the invader sprite and we are here. So it's touching laser, the sound, the wait seconds, all this. So we are going to destroy the invader here. So it's here where we are going to update the player score. And what we are going to do is to change the player score. I just call it score. Yeah, we don't have any other score, so it's okay. We are going to change the score by a certain amount. And in the original game, we have the 3 different types of invaders, and each type of invader has a different score value. So the invaders here on the bottom have the score of 10. These ones here have the score of 20, and this one here have the score of 30. And when we are changing the score here, when we destroy an invader, we are going to use the invader type to get the correct value, which is actually pretty simple, because our invader types are invader type number 1, invader type number 2, and invader type number 3. And if this is 10, 20, and 30, we just need to change the score by the invader type times 10. So yeah, by times 10, 10, 20, and 30. So we are going to change the score here. The invader type that we already have, which is invader type number 1, number 2, or number 3, and multiply the invader type by 10. So we are going to change the score by 10, 20, or 30. And after we change the score, we need to tell our digits that the score changed and that they need to update themselves. So after we update the score, we are going to broadcast a message, and we are going to create a new message, which we'll call update score, and we just send a message. So we update the score value and then send a message, and the digits will take care of the rest. If we were using a different engine, it will be something a little bit different, because right now we are going to updating the score on the different places and then telling the UI to just update the value, while on some other if we were using a different engine, we probably would just say, okay, update the score by this value, and then that entity that would have in our engine would deal with everything. Okay, so I'm going to update the score with this value, and I'm going to update the UI. So we didn't have different places where we are changing the score, which it's not a very good practice, but that's what we can make here. So despite in addition to changing the score here, we are also going to repeat this change score by something and broadcast update score on the mystery ship. So we are duplicating these blocks, and ideally we wouldn't need to do something like that, but this is what Scratch allows us to do. So on mystery ship, we are also going to update the score. And we go to the mystery ship. We have here, this is where we are destroying the mystery ship. Yep. Wait 2 seconds. Why are we waiting 2 seconds there? I don't remember anymore. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. What we are going to do here is exactly the same like we did on the other one. So we are going to not set, but change the score by, and the mystery ship, like I told you on another video, the mystery ship has this whole calculation to get the correct score value for the mystery ship. It is related to the number of times that the player fired before until destroying the mystery ship. But right now we are going to just add like some big number like 100. So the invaders are 10, 20, and 30, and the mystery ship is worth 100 points. And after we change the score by 100, we are also going to broadcast the message update score. And also check that we are only broadcasting the message and not broadcasting and waiting. We don't need to update the score and then wait for it to happen to continue the rest of the execution. So we can just say, okay, update score, and I'm just going to continue with all the blocks that I had before on both cases. So these are both places where we need to update the score. And now we can go back to our digits and prepare to update the score numbers according to the score value. And so when we receive the message update score is where we are going to change the values. And now we can go back to this I was preparing here. So we are going to have 3 different types of situations. I mean, 4 if we count with the original one, which the score is 0, 0, 0. But we are going to deal with 3 different types of situations where we need to update the score. The score is either has 2 digits, or 3 digits, or 4 digits. And according to this, we need to understand which one of the sprites we need to update, because when we send the message update score, all the 4 sprites receive this message, but not all of them are going to need to update their own costume, because if the score has only 2 digits, then only the last 2 sprites need to update their score. These other 2 don't need to do it. So the first thing that we need to understand is which sprite we need to update or not. And a way to do it is to understand what is the index of the sprite that we need to start updating from. And what I mean by this is that we are going to treat the score as if it was like text, and it has like a length, like a number of characters. And in this case, this text has a length of 2, this one has a length of 3, and this one has a length of 4. And a way to understand what is the index where we are going to start updating is basically decreasing the length of the score from 4. And why is that? Because let's see here, for example, if we are updating, and let me see how can I change show you guys here. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. Okay, we have this here, and these are the indexes of the 4 digits. So we have this here, we have these ones here. I'm going to separate this a little bit, and no, not these ones, and we have these ones here. Okay, and so let's see if the length of the score equals to 2, then the start index is going to be this one. And I'm going to do something like this. And so when the length of the score equals to the number 2, the start index is going to be 2. When it equals to number 3, the start index is going to be 1. And when the length of the score value is equal to 4, the start index is going to equal to 0. What this means is that the max amount that we can have is 4. So the start index is actually equal to 4 minus the length of the score. If we have 4 minus 2, we have 2, 4 minus 3, we have 1, and 4 minus 4, we have 0. So this is how we get the start index, or how we find which digit we are going to start updating from. So the first thing that we are going to do in the project is to create a variable to hold this start index. We are going to calculate the start index and then hold the start index and use it to understand if we need to update that digit or not. So in the variables, let's create a new variable for this sprite only, and let's call it start index. Yeah, it's for this sprite only, so we don't need to add the digit, and we are not probably going to use this name anywhere else. So let's call it for this sprite, call it just start index. And now that we have a variable called start index, when we receive the message, we are going to determine what is the start index that we are going to start updating the digits from. So we set the start index to, like I said, 4 minus the length of the score. And the length is a new block we haven't used yet, which is this one. A length is the total amount of characters of some text, but we can also use it with numbers. So we can get a length of a number, and it's going to treat the number like if it was text, and it's going to retrieve the number of characters. So if the number is 10, it has 2 letters, or 2 letters, I mean 2 characters, 103 characters, and 1004 characters. So the start index is going to equal to 4 minus the length of the score. And now we have the start index. And how are we going to use it? Because now that we have the start index, we know that we are only going to update the start index of the digits that have an index equal to the start index or greater than. Because if it's 10, we are only going to need to update this one and these 2 digits. If we have a start index of 1, we only need to update these ones. And if the start index is 0, which means that the score has 4 digits, we need to update all of them. So we can add a condition here to do exactly that. So only when, and now we need a condition of or, because we only have greater and equal. We don't have like greater or equal. So if the start index, you see here, so if, I mean, not the start index, if the digit index is equal to the start index or the digit index is greater than the start index, is when we are going to deal with updating the costume of that number. And only then, because the other ones we'll just ignore and not do anything. And now that we have the start index, now we already know which digits we actually need to update. We can change the costume of the digit to reflect the correct number. So we know that we are going to switch the costume. I'm just going to put it here. And now we can just test to see if we are actually putting this correctly. So let's just try something like after we do all this, we're just going to call, we're just going to change the score here and just afterwards call the update score to see if it's only changing the digits that we want. So we can come here to the events and we can broadcast update score, but before we need to actually change the score value. So let's, for example, change the score to 10. And so that I remember, oh, we created a score variable, but we didn't reset the value. Let's just do that right now before we forget. So on the player, since it is a player score, so we're going to do it on the player sprite. When we click the green flag, we're going to move the player. But before that, we are also going to reset the score to 0. So every time we start the game, the score is reset as it should be. And now we can go back here. So then we are going to remove this. It's just for testing purposes. So we are going to change the score to 10. And if it works okay, then all sprites start at 0. All the 4 digits start with the costume 0. And if it works okay, only the last 2 sprites are going to change the costume to 9. Because we are changing the costume to the last value. And let's see. And yes, it changed. Only changed the last 2, so it is correct. Now, if we, for example, have 100, let's do something also here. We must always remember to reset stuff that we are changing during the game. So when we start as a clone, we always change the costume of the digit to 0, back to 0. And if we have 100, let's see. And it's moving, yes, and it's moving once again because I'm forgetting to resetting the variables? No. Why is it like that now? Yeah, but we are resetting the digit index. Why is it like moving? I don't know why it's moving. So let me just, maybe I forgot to do something, or it was some error that I had before. Let's see. Oh, now I don't remember the correct position once again. Oh, I didn't put, sorry. I didn't reset the position here, but I shouldn't need to reset the position because we are actually not moving the original sprite. I mean, these original sprites and clones is another thing that I'm still trying to not mess up when I'm working with Scratch, is making the difference or choosing the correct for all sprites and for this sprite only, and not messing up when we are using clones and original sprite. These are the 2 things that I'm always messing up when I'm working with Scratch. So I'm just going to put it back on the position. It was, let me see, I should have it here, 149. Yeah, this was the original position. Let me just see if I need to reset it each time, because I'm not sure, but I shouldn't need to do it. Okay, change the last 3 sprites. This was what were actually looking for. And the original sprite is on the correct place. Yeah, I mean, let me see. Yeah, it's still on the correct place, so probably if I run it again. Okay, probably I moved the sprite or I didn't reset the digit index before running this. I don't remember, but now it's in the correct place and we don't need to reset the place here. But if we want to make sure, and now I want to make sure because I don't want it to happen again, I'm just going to, always before starting the game, I'm going to set the X to the correct position that I want. So we tried with 100 and it's also working. We can now try with 1000 just to see. And yes, it's changing the 4 values. Okay, now that we are actually changing the correct sprites, I'm going to put like 15 so we can see if we are changing the correct digits now. We need to implement a way to actually change the costumes to the correct digit. And how are we going to do it? Like I said, the numbers, when we are dealing with numbers like this, we can use the numbers like text, and if they have like 2 different characters like text, and in Scratch, each character inside the text has also an index. So for example, these are a lot of numbers right now, but let's see. So for example, if we have this text, the first character would have the number 1, and the second character would have number 2. And if we had this text, it would have 1, 2, 3, something like this. And if we had this one, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the index of the letter. So if we see this 1 as a letter and the zeros as a letter as well, so the index of the letter of the number 1 would be 1, and the index of the number 0 would be 2. And why do we need an index? Because that's why or how we are going to access the letter of the score. So what we are going to change, we are going to change the costume to a letter number something, number 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the score variable. This is what we are going to do. So what we need to do right now is figure it out how to get the correct number here. And so let's go back to this planning that we have here. And now you can see that, actually I could just, they are not like very, I can see it here. So now you can see that when we have 2 digits, we start at start index number 2, and the letter index that we start is number 1. When we have 3 digits, we start at the start index number 1, and we start at number 1, letter index number 1. When we have the start index number 0, we start at start index number, number 1. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I was moving this, but yeah. So now what we need to do is figure it out how we can go from this, because this is what we want, what we have, to get the correct letter index. And the correct way to do it is to let me see how can I can explain it, we can get to this value if we subtract the start index from the index of the letter. So why is that? Because start index here is number 2, and if we do 2 minus 2, we're going to have 0. 3 minus 2, we're going to have 1. But since the letters, the indexes in Scratch start at 1, sorry, don't start at 0, we also need to add 1. So if we do the start index, the index of the letter minus the start index plus 1, we are always going to have the letter index that we want. So I'm just going to implement this, and then we are going to go through one of the times that it runs, so we can see that the math is all correct. So like I was saying, the way to get that is to have the index, the digit index, minus the start index. Sorry, not this one. The index minus, so the digit index minus the start index plus 1. And the plus 1 is only because we are using the indexes that start at 0, and Scratch actually uses indexes that start at 1. So we always need to add 1 at the end, sorry. So we have the letter, which is digit index minus start index plus 1. And now, I think the best way to see this working is to put some value here and just see the whole math that we are doing here. First, let's see if this is correct. And it's not correct. Why is that? Let me see. It's 4. 4? Okay, why is it 4? Doesn't make sense. Yeah, so we are doing index, digit index, minus the start index, plus 1 of score. And we are doing score 15, 10, let me see. 9. Okay, probably what we are getting here is not correct. And okay, let's debug this like we're actually debugging some code. So let's see, 15. I'm gonna run this. Okay, so let's see the case for the last digit. I think it's a good place because it has a value of 4 and we need to understand why it has a value of 4. So we update the score, we set the start index. And the start index is 4 minus the length of score. And the score that we are using is 15, which has length of 2. So 4 minus 2 is equal to 2. And the start index gets the value of 2. Now, the digit index, and if we are taking as example the last digit, the digit index is number 3. So if digit is equal to start index is not, but digit index, which is 3, is greater than 2, which makes this true as well, and then we go into the display. So we are actually changing the costume. And now let's see. We are getting a value of the letter. So we are using the value of score, okay? But now the number of the letter that we are using is digit index, and we know that digit index is the number 3, and the start index is the number 2, which is also correct. So digit index number 3, start index number 2, that gives us the value of 1. 1 plus 1 gives us the value of 2, which is correct. Because if we have 15, then instead of this, we would have something like this, and the letter index would be 2, which is what we are looking for the last digit. And now here is like 4. And why is that? Okay, guys, I figured it out, sorry. We are using, but before that, on my other project, which is exactly the same, it is working. So it's the usual, it works on my machine, I don't know. But what's happening is that we are getting the correct letter. So we are actually getting the letter, I don't know, the example that I have here. So we are actually getting the letter number 2 and the letter number 5. But the problem is that the costume, if you have letter number 2, the costume number 2 is 1, and the costume number 5 is 4. So we will not get 25, but 14, 1, 4. So besides doing all this, we also need to get the letter and add 1 at the end. And now it looks like it's working, I expect. Let me see, I don't know, 157. I'm just going to try the 3 different cases with the 3 different 157. Yeah, it's correct. And now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here. Okay, yeah. Seems to be working. So let me just reset the score to 0 and try it again. Okay, 10, 20, 40, yeah, because I killed one of the other ones, yes, okay. We still have a small problems with when we are destroying the invaders. You can see that sometimes it doesn't destroy, some other times it destroys more than one, but that's something we are going to deal with at the end of the videos. Okay. Okay, 36, yeah. And I'm not going to test it with the mystery ship, but I'm going to assume that it is okay. And this is it. I mean, to show the score, maybe what we can also do is like we don't want to have this before actually creating the game, because then it looks strange because we have the player and have this. And so maybe what we can also do here is just when the game starts, we are going to hide it. I mean, we can hide it by default, but just to make sure, when the game starts, we are going to hide it. And when it receives the start message, not this one, but this one, when it receives the start message, we are going to show it. It's pretty simple, and actually you can also do it with the player, like when the game starts, the player is hidden here, and we only show the player when the game actually starts, when the player can actually move, the user can actually move the player. So it just creates all this, and yes, this is it. And so this was the score. And on the next video, we are going to deal with the player life, or the losing condition. So understanding when the player loses. So basically the player loses when it loses all its life. So the player has 3 lives. And when it reaches 0, it loses the game. And it also loses a life. It loses a life when it gets hit by an invader missile, or when the invaders reach the bottom of the screen. And once again, I don't know exactly where they need to reach, if it's below the bottom of the bunkers, below the bunkers, the player line, but maybe we'll do something like when the invaders are at the player line, because it would mean that the invaders would hit the player. When they reach that line, the player loses a life. And when it loses 3 lives, then it loses the game. And that's it. So we are going to see that on the next video. Thank you.